All right, friends, we've hit a strategy page. We are on page 678. Okay, find it in your book. Pause the video if you need to. These strategy pages are where they give us the word problems that use the math that we are currently using. So, our sample problem says, Zachary is looking up at the high diving board at the pool. Is the high diving board 10 inches high, 10 feet high, or 10 yards high? So I want you to think about the high diving board at a pool. Usually our pools at home, okay, let's pretend this is my pool, there's my water. The diving board is usually just above the water. But when you go to a pool that has a high diving board, it usually has a ladder that goes up. And then once you climb the ladder, it has a diving board at the top, like this, okay? So now we have to use our thinking brain and think about Zachary up here on the high diving board. He's getting ready to jump. Probably looks a little scared because it's pretty high up. 10 inches is our first choice. So 10 inches is going to be right about there on our ruler. I'll back up so you can see my ruler. So that's going to be 10 inches. If I measure myself, that's like not even to my knee. So do we think that the diving board is going to be 10 inches? I'm going to say probably not, because that's not very high up. Okay, so I'm going to cross off 10 inches. 10 feet high. So 10 feet high is about as high as the ceiling at school. Okay, so that's about 10 feet high. That would be 10 rulers stacked on top of each other. My ceiling here at my house is about 8 feet high. It's 8 rulers stacked on top of each other. If it helps you, Brandon is almost 7 feet tall. So 10 feet tall would be just a little taller than Brandon, just a little taller than the ceiling at my house, and about the same height as the ceiling at school. So we have to decide if that sounds like a high diving board, or 10 yards. That's going to be 10 of these yardsticks going end by end. And I think if I did 10 yards, my ceiling here at my house is only about 3 yards. So if I put my upstairs floor on it, that's about 6 yards. So it would be like a 3-story building. So I'm guessing that school might be about 10 yards tall. So which one sounds like it would be more realistic? That he's jumping off of a height a little taller than the ceiling at school, or a height that's about as tall as the school? Maybe even a little taller, but about as tall as the school. I'm going to say that if he was jumping off a height as tall as the school, that might be a little too tall. He might get hurt jumping from that high. So I'm going to say that he is jumping from a height of about 10 feet. Okay? So I think that's probably the most reasonable height for him to jump from. There are word problems on the next couple pages. You need to think these through. Some of them are math, where you're going to have to add and subtract and figure things out. And some of them are just trying to figure out what makes sense. Our sample question was trying to figure out what makes sense. It doesn't make sense for him to jump from 10 inches. Your journal for math is less than 10 inches. That's about just a little less than 10 inches. So if he had a diving board as tall as your journal, it's not very tall. So we know for sure that's not the answer. All right, so use your logic, use your brain, think these things through. Let me know if you need any help with it. Your work is on page 679 and 680.